Hey, watch this, and never, ever again will you struggle to change the tires on your dirt bike. Sound good? Let's go. All right, put the tire in the sun to get some heat to it. It'll be a lot easier to work with when it's soft and supple. Get a nice surface to work on, put a blanket down, find some tools. You're gonna need some tire irons, a couple wrenches, some spray lube. Start with that valve stem. Get the core out of it so you can get some air out of this tire. Keep an eye on that little guy. You're gonna need it if you're gonna reuse the old tube. On this one, it's a number 12 mil wrench to get that nut off. Free up the air valve, and while you got that tool in hand, free up the nut on the rim lock and make sure it just pushes in easily. Very important, you want to break the bead all the way around the tire, both sides. It's not always this easy. Sometimes it takes a lot of effort to break it free. This is probably one of the most important steps. You got to have that free because you're going to want to fill it up with some tire lube. Very important step. You may want to invest in a good set of tire irons. I really like these ones here. They're from Motion Pro. They work great. And when you start prying on this thing, the opposite side to where you have the tire iron is where you got to push on the tire to get it into the drop center. Super important. If that tire doesn't go into the drop center, you are never going to get this tire off. So make sure you press hard on that. And you can see here when I lever on this iron, watch right there on the left side. You can see how that tire ducks down and into the drop center. Super important. I can't emphasize that point enough. Getting the tire to fit into the drop center is absolutely paramount. And there it is right there. That's what I'm talking about. That's the drop center of the rim. If you can't push that tire down and in there, there's no way you're going to get enough room on the backside to start prying that tire off. It just ain't happening. All right, so there you go. Now the more you work your way around here, the easier it gets. As you can see, it's just going to fall off now. There's nothing to it. Now you can get your hand in there and pull out the inner tube. Now, be gentle if you're going to reuse it. If not, just chuck it. And then you're going to look for that rim lock. Now press that thing in. Once you get your hand in there, you're going to see it's a little tight, but in my case, this one's broken. I end up gluing it and taping it all back together. I won't have a new one in time for this video, so that'll be good enough. Just know that that's not supposed to be two pieces. Flip it over, get some tire lube in. Now some guys like to pull the tire off this side too, which leaves the rim floating in the middle of the tire, and then you can just twist it out. That works pretty good. I usually flip the tire over and continue levering the tire off the same side of the rim I started with. Now either way, it works fine. It's just whatever works best for you. I've had the most success doing it this way. It doesn't take much effort, and at some point the tire just seems to fall off by itself. Pull off the rim liner, have a look and make sure it's in good shape, and go give the rim a quick wash. Now you can see here I previously added some tape to the rim for a little extra protection under the rim liner. Make sure everything looks good, dry it off, and get set to put this thing back together. Alright, now you can reinstall the rim liner, and when you do, trap the rim lock under the rim liner. It just holds it into place. Now when you grab the tire, check for directional indication. This one is not directional, so you can put it either way, but what it does have is a time date stamp, so there you go. 25th week of 2020. Good to know. And this stuff here, I use it all the time. It's a tire grease. The stuff works so well. Now you've got to be sure to put it on the vertical surface of the tire only, not on that flat side of the tire that mates with the inside edge of the rim. You don't want the tire to be able to spin on the rim under load. Okay, now sometimes it'll just fall right on. This is probably one of the easiest parts. Sometimes you'll be able to push this thing on without any effort at all. A couple little pries and bam, it goes on just like that. No problem at all. Okay, now the rim lock is going to hang up here because I didn't get the back side of it over, so you'll probably have the same issue. It's got a little lump there. Just pry and fiddle around with it. You'll get it on. And then push it in place, and you can see that it's free right there. Perfect. Okay, put the nut on so it doesn't disappear when you flip it over. All right, go for your inner tube. Make sure you got the right one. Okay, this is it. Looks good. Open everything up and start peeling off the cap and the nuts. So, just like that. Now I leave that bottom nut on against the washer. And here's the thing I do. I like to put a little bit of air in there so that it's not all wrinkly, and it's a lot easier to put it into the tire. A little bit of powder, good to go. Now a lot of guys will do this step before they actually put the tire on the rim. For me, it works easier this way, but either way works. Just do whatever works best for you. You can put it in the tire and then put the tire on the rim. It's just a little harder to line up the Schrader valve in the hole, but hey, either way works. This is just how I do it. Put the nut on it, hold it in place so it doesn't disappear on you. You don't need to tighten it. Keep it loose so you can push the tube away from the rim when you're fitting the tire on. And more tire lube. Again, on the vertical surface only. You don't want that tire slipping Okay, ready to go. Same process here, little bites at a time. I start near the Schrader valve. I like to seat the tire around that first, and then just work your way around, little bites at a time. Now there is a thing called a bead buddy that will actually lock onto the spokes and stop the tire from lifting out as you're working your way around, but I find if you just use your patience and hold on to the left side, see how my left hand is holding that one? It's not going to creep out on you. Press down into that drop center and you're good to go. That thing won't walk out on you. Especially if you're really vigilant by keeping it down into the drop center. You'll have lots of room. It won't be under very much tension at all. One last little pry. Watch how easy this goes over. Easy. You can push it in by hand. Watch. Bam, just like that. Nothing to it. Next up, a little bit of spray lube because you're going to want to set this bead now with some air pressure, both sides. Hit it with a little bit of overpressure, not too much, maybe 25-30 pounds is enough. See how the bead sets there? And over here on this side too. On the tire, check it all the way around, and you'll see that there's a line here, an indicator. If you see this line all the way around the tire evenly, then the bead is set. If you don't see it, just let the air out and reseat it again. Just keep working your way around. If the tire is lubed up well, it'll probably seat nicely on your first try. Then snug down the lock nut on the rim lock while it's still under pressure. Then set your tire pressure. That's what I do, 12 to 15 pounds, something like that. Now this is critical here. Put the cap on and then back off the lock nut down to the cap. That's how the pros do it. Must be the right way. I don't know. All right, now don't be shocked, but that lock nut method seemed a little weird to me at first. Now the logic goes like this. If you have the valve stem poking through the rim and it's only got a lock nut on the bottom, it can float a little bit if there's any sort of torque on that inner tube inside. Conversely, if it's got a lock nut on the bottom and a lock nut on top and it's tightly fitted into that rim, any sort of torque on the inside that shifts that tube, you're going to tear that valve stem right out of the tube and your ride is done. Now I went down the rabbit hole on this one, looked around the internet and found a lot of interesting opinions. Now if you want to see what I came up with or what I saw there, check out this video right here. It's the Nomar tire changer and the mystery of the valve stem lock nut. You might find it interesting. All right, I got stuff to do. See ya.